Hi, this is a quick overview of the group paper and presentation that is due for the 6973 clinical. I am first going to show you where to find the assignments. If you click on the assignments tab, then you scroll down to the process improvement paper and presentation and click on this little object here. You'll be able to just kind of get a brief overview here. And if you want to see the full instructions, you and the students can click on topics to include in your presentation. There's also a hard copy of the presentation rubric, which is also available here, as you can see, if you want just a quick reference. So I'm just going to pull up the actual instructions here. So for this project is meant for students that are in an acute healthcare setting, which is where everyone is because you're inside a hospital. Um, so I wanted students to be able to focus on ethical considerations and as well as environmental and social barriers to safe and quality outcomes of patients. And that is directly coming from the objectives of the course. So the purpose of this assignment is for students to demonstrate their ability to consider environmental and social factors and as well as ethical considerations by identifying a need for change within the unit the student is in. So it can be the unit that they're in or looking at the organization as a whole. So they'll be dealing with patients and clinicals and working with nurses. So the focus can be something that's going on directly with a patient, something that's happened there, or something that they can improve uh, that's happened with the patient, or they can focus on what the nurses have been doing, or it can be a combination. It can also be the text, whatever they are feeling are important aspects that will be able to relate to the ethical and other considerations that I've mentioned. As I mentioned before, some students may ask why they have to do both a paper and a presentation when it's kind of the same, it's talking about the same topics, but as I say here, they are going to be master prepared nursing professionals, so they will need to be able to articulate problems that are identified and also be able, and to do that both verbally and in a written format. Much better than I can in this video, apparently. But so what you'll want to do, so this is a group project. So you can, depending on how many students you have, if you have a small group, let's say if you only have 4 students, you can make that one project. Or if you want to break them up into groups of 2 to 3 students, or right down the middle with 4 and 4, if you have 8 students, you can do that as well. Just that is up to you, your choice as the instructor. uh, so, um, like I said, so the students will try to figure out what their topic is going to be. They can do that by kind of brainstorming with you, the instructor. They can ask nurses directly on the unit if there have been some issues that the unit as a whole has been trying to deal with, or just what they are seeing on their own, and they can, as a group, decide what that will be. So the group will then have to submit a 7 to 10 page paper in APA format, and that is by using the APA 7th edition formatting for this. The main thing with the 7th edition is compared to the 6th edition is that there's a different title page where let me back up. So with the 7th edition, there's both a professional formatting as well as student formatting. For this clinical, they can. I've let the students know that they will be. They can use the student formatting for this, and because they will be. The difference is that they on the title page will add the date of the project. They have to list all of the authors, and with this being a group project, that needs to be added on there. And also a difference with the paper is that there is no running head throughout the document. So they just have the title page and then no running head, so that can assist with formatting too for students when it comes to using Word documents. And things like Google Docs. So there is a topics to include in your paper section down below, and the students will use that to write or create their paper. So students will decide amongst the group who is going to be writing about which particular topic, and then they'll come together to write one group paper. And there is a possibility within settings to create a group project, or excuse me, a group submission for the paper, which I'll show here in just a few minutes. So once the paper though should be submitted before they turn in their presentation. However, it used to be in the previous semesters that they would submit a one-page summary of what they're going to be choosing for the for their topic, and that was due 3 weeks prior to the presentation. You can have the paper, or excuse me, have the paper due at the same time as the presentation. You are, as the instructor, will select the due date. I do suggest that it is later in the semester to give students time to get acclimated to the clinical setting, start building up how many patients they can manage, and then they can focus a bit more on getting this paper and presentation ready. They should have a topic available to you by, let's say, if you can aim for week 4 or 5, that way they can really start to get their heads rolling with what they want to talk about and have enough time to get everything prepared. So then once they have written their paper, then, or as they're getting that together, they will develop a 15 to 20 slide PowerPoint based on the information from the paper. Then that will be presented as a group to either their peers, especially if there's more than one group, you all can present to each other, or if you happen to be in a hospital where there's an additional clinical group, you can present to each other. Maybe you guys can work out that if you're on the same clinical day. Just note that if you are having to conduct virtual virtual debriefing, you may have to opt to select one student that can share their screen during your virtual during the time when you are going to be assigning this that you'll be assigning the presentation. That'll just have to be done virtually as well, most likely. So select one student that will be sharing their screen, and they can then share, or excuse me, they can see, everyone can see the PowerPoint as they are presenting it. Another option is for you, the instructor, since you are holding the Teams meeting, you can have the students submit their PowerPoint in Canvas, and then you can go into Canvas and open up that presentation for them and forward with the slides for them if you prefer that. It might work better to have a student do that though. All right, so the paper and presentation, it's worth 100 points. And it does account for 10% of their grade. So they, and it says here what they need to do to maximize their points. They need to cite 3 to 5 supporting research articles, and they also need to provide organizations that are like websites or organizations, basically at least 2 online resources that can be used for this process improvement. All right, so here it spells out the exact components of what needs to be in the paper. The paper, like I said, it should be 7 to 10 pages, and that's excluding the title page and reference page. Finally, for the presentation, what the topics are in the paper, that is what they will be using as topics for their presentation, which kind of makes sense. They can use PowerPoint. If they prefer to use Google Slides, that's fine. They just need to be able to upload that document as a PowerPoint file, or so that everybody, or so that each instructor can view it. And they need, whatever they choose, they need to make sure it's available during the presentation. All right, so presentation slides, they can list the primary author right on the slide, as far as which student was the person to conduct that research. The slide, I said, like I said, has to be 15 to 20 slides long, and ensure that the reference slide does follow the APA format. They can be as creative as they want. They can put videos, graphics, whatever they want to kind of spice it up a little bit, make it more interesting, and remind your students to use the oral communication rubric as a guide when they're giving their presentation. So these are the topics here that they need to have in their paper. They need to talk about healthcare or process improvement issue. They need to introduce that. They need to talk about what the relevant issues are, the ethical considerations, discuss any social factors. You can add environmental factors as well in there. They then can go to, they'll need to apply the social determinants of health model, which I provided the link for. They'll need to also demonstrate a connection to the ANA Code of Ethics. That is a healthy document, but I did provide the link for that. And then they can do a Control F to maybe help find some topics easier too when they're on the websites. Then I also put, they also need to try to relate it to Healthy People 2020 objectives, which the link is there. They need to identify current resources or lack of them that will assist patient populations that are affected by that selected topics. And I know we said we're going to kind of go away from just focusing on patient populations, but if it's blatantly obvious on, if it's elderly versus pediatric patients, OB patients, things like that, students can definitely add that into the paper. Then they need to discuss some potential nursing interventions that could be initiated within the setting. So changes that could be made in order to help combat whatever issue that they are seeing. And then it gives some little caveats on what they can do as far as explain the resources to implement these interventions, describe how the interventions may differ within the acute care setting versus the community setting. That's an important one. And they need to talk about what the challenges are and how how it will affect, sorry, I just see a typo, how it will affect the population of the community that the healthcare organization services. So how can they overcome those challenges? So again, just reminding that they need 3 to 5 research articles, and then they also need to provide some online resources there. So students are encouraged to establish norms about how they're going to work together. This is more a note for the students. I'm just reminding that if they're going to use PowerPoint itself or Google Docs to kind of link into PowerPoint, they just need to make sure that it is accessible during the presentation. They need to submit the paper and the PowerPoint in the Dropbox. And like I said, you as the instructor can determine and put into Canvas what the due dates are to help the students be reminded online. And there's just another copy of the rubric if you want to take a look at that. There are 5 elements, each worth 20 points maximum, and again that goes along with the 100-point grading for this assignment. So thank you so much for listening on this overview.